So in this first part of the experiment, what we're going to do is take some of this purple or red cabbage and we're going to extract the indicator from it. So all we're going to do is to take some of this, place it in a blender, add some deionized water to it, blend it up, and then strain out the solid, and then we'll end up with some purple cabbage juice essentially that will contain the indicator for this experiment. All right, so we're going to be testing now the pH of our different substances using two different methods. We're going to be using pH paper, which comes in this container and it has a yellow color to start with. And all we're going to be doing is using our stirring rod, dip it into our solution and then touching the stirring rod to that paper and then matching up the color to the color wheel to determine what pH it is. We're also going to be using our red cabbage indicator to determine the pH. So I'm going to illustrate this using the contents of the first test tube, which is hydrochloric acid, HCl. So I'm going to take my stirring rod, it's clean, I'm going to touch it to the contents of the tube, so that's my HCl, and then I'm going to transfer it then to a piece of pH paper. I'm going to see what color it turns. And I'm going to match that up to the color here on the color wheel. And as you can see, it's just around 1, which makes sense because hydrochloric acid is an acid and it should have a pH of less than 7. We are also going to be determining the pH by using some of the red cabbage indicator that we extracted from the red cabbage earlier. So it looks like this, it just looks like purple cabbage juice. So we're going to take some of our HCl that was in that original test tube, and we're going to add about 10 drops of our red cabbage indicator to this. We're going to give it a quick stir with the same stirring rod. As you can see, the color has changed to a nice red color, and we're going to match that color up to the color chart that's given on page 3 of your lab handout. And it looks like it's a dark pink to a rose looking color, which is around a pH of 2, which corresponds well to the pH that we determined using the pH paper before. So we're going to repeat this with all the other samples of substances that we have. We're going to test the pH using the pH paper, and then we're also going to be testing the pH using our red cabbage indicator, and that data will be provided to you. Alright, so in the last part of the experiment, we're going to be taking a look at the effect of adding hydrochloric acid and adding sodium hydroxide has on different solutions. The first thing that we need to do is to establish what the pH of these different solutions are. And the solutions that we're going to be working with are the 7 of them that are outlined in part C of your experiment. So we're going to be using our red cabbage indicator. We're going to add 10 drops of the indicator to each of the 7 tubes. We're going to be observing the color that the solution changes and matching it up to our color scheme to determine what the pH of our different solutions are. So for instance, in our test tube 1 here, we have our deionized water. We're going to add 10 drops of our red cabbage indicator, give it a swirl to mix well. We're going to record that color, and then using our color scheme that's given in your lab manual, we're going to approximate what that pH is. We're going to do that for all of the other tubes as well. So here we have our initial test tubes right after we've added our red cabbage indicator to all of them. So starting from the left here, test tubes 1, 2, and 3. Then right behind that we have test tubes 4, 5, and 6. And then our test tube 7 has a similar color associated with it as well. So we're going to record those colors and then approximate what the pH is for each of those solutions. So after we've established the initial color, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take, for example, our test tube 1, which has this initial color associated with it, and then to this we're going to add 2 drops of our HCl solution to it, and then we're going to see how the color changes. We're going to match up the color to our color scheme for the red cabbage indicator now to say what pH the solution has changed to upon addition of that hydrochloric acid. All right, we're going to repeat that process with the other tubes as outlined in your instructions, and we'll provide that data to you in terms of the color and the pHs that correspond to each of the solutions.